On today's TMJ4, this is 4-1 Forward.
He's the most powerful and influential conservative voice on morning talk radio in Milwaukee. Liberals used to be his primary political target. All of that changed for Charlie Sykes in 2016 when a guy named Donald Trump jumped into the presidential race. Sykes is out with a new book called How the Right Lost Its Mind. He joins me now on 4-1 Forward. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right, the title says The Right Lost Its Mind. Who are you referring to here when you say the right?
Well, I'm talking about a political movement that somehow went from William F. Buckley Jr. to Sean Hannity, that went from Ronald Reagan to Donald Trump. You know, somewhere along the line, you went from a movement that I think was, that at least on the outside, looked like it was based on certain shared principles, and then suddenly decides it's going to embrace Donald Trump, who in so many ways was a rejection of the conservative intellectual tradition, as well as conservative ideas of just civility and being fact-based.
So let's set the record straight here. Folks who know you know that you were never a Donald Trump fan. In fact, if you go back to just before the Wisconsin primary in March, Donald Trump was on your radio show, and to put it mildly, there was a confrontation. Things did not go well for Donald Trump. Let's listen in on that conversation.
You don't want me to hold you accountable for what your supporters are doing.
Apologize? Is Ted Cruz going to apologize for starting it and sending out that picture?
And that's your stand.
I thought it was very inappropriate.
Do you ever apologize? Do you ever apologize? Because you know what? Most real men, when they screw up, they'll go, you know what?
No,
I was a hothead. I shouldn't have done that.
Was that a turning point in this race?
I actually thought the Wisconsin primary was going to be a firewall of rationality, but we turned out to be merely a speed bump. So no, it really wasn't a turning point. It really wasn't a turning point. I think that Wisconsin conservatives, I think, had a very different tradition, and I think this the national media immediately picked up on this. While Donald Trump was rolling through one state after another, he gets to Wisconsin and suddenly finds a conservative electorate that looks at him and goes, no, that's not what we had in mind. We're used to principled, reform-minded conservatives who get things done, who don't attack women, who don't mock the disabled, who, are not, serial liars and con men, et cetera. And that's why I think he did so poorly here, at least in the primary.
Yeah, he loses the primary and then wins Wisconsin, but still doesn't get as many votes as Ron Johnson did on that election.
Yes, but he did win Wisconsin.
Yeah,
and that story is also significant.
All right, so when did it come to you to say, all right, I just can't sort of be on his side, even though you knew that people were saying, Charlie, why are you being a traitor on this?
Well, I was pretty much a Trump skeptic from the moment he came down that golden escalator. By the time he called into my show in March, I'd already been talking about him for 9 months. In fact, I didn't expect he was going to call in, because I figured all he needed to do was to look at my Twitter feed, and somebody on his staff, Google, what I'd been saying. Would have taken them 10 seconds to realize that I was never Trump, and they never did that. So it was never a decision, because I thought that Donald Trump was manifestly unfit to be president of the United States, and most Republicans and conservatives in southeastern Wisconsin, I think, shared that view. What I underestimated, however, was the incredible pull of political tribalism, how politically partisan we've become, that it really becomes a matter that even though you have these doubts about him, that the demand of tribal loyalty became so strong, and so that many of those Republicans who had shared my views of Donald Trump decided they were going to shift. But because I didn't change what I had said, they thought that I was the traitor. They did the flip-flop. I was saying, and I still say exactly the same things that I said back then, but they changed, but I'm the traitor.
Okay, so yes, you say the others flip-flop. You didn't. But the others said, well, he's the party's choice now. And would he be better than in this case, Hillary Clinton? So why were you not able to make that argument that, okay, yes, he is a flawed candidate, so was Hillary Clinton? Why not stay with him?
Yeah. Well, and that was the argument. And this is something I describe in the book is the binary choice in our politics where, no matter how awful Donald Trump might have been, Hillary was always worse. And this sense that every election is kind of the apocalypse. And therefore, you needed to overlook his conduct. You needed to overlook his bragging about sexually assaulting women or mocking prisoners of war, et cetera, or, picking fights with Gold Star families. But And I was never for Hillary. But I did think that, if you regard the man as unfit to be the President of the United States, if you think that it is an unnecessary risk to give him control of the federal government, the job that Abraham Lincoln once held, and control the nuclear codes, why would I change simply because he was the nominee?
So then what were your friends saying to you? Charlie, how come, you've sold out on us?
Yeah.
And when you talk about the conservatives here, you're talking about Paul Ryan, you're
Right.
talking about Scott Walker, you're talking about
Right.
Reince Priebus. They must have had some interesting conversations
Yes.
with you about what are you doing?
And I understand. I do understand the choice that many of them made, and I have a lot of respect for people who, in the end, went into the ballot box and, pulled that lever because of an issue like, for example, the Supreme Court. As opposed to the people who drank the orange Kool-Aid and have decided that we don't care about Russia or anything else, or rationalize the behavior. But I do think that there was that bargain that people like Paul Ryan made, which is that I want to get tax reform. I want to have Obamacare repealed, and I'm not going to get that with the President Hillary Clinton. So they made a trade-off.
One of the things you
Yeah.
talk about in
Yeah.
the book is that 2016 was the perfect storm for a
Right.
candidate like Donald Trump.
Right.
Because everything had sort of been moving in that direction.
Right.
How?
Well, I think in part...
Tea Party, you're talking about the movements.
Yeah, I think that, and this is, again, after I left the radio show, I wrote this book in part to figure out for myself what the heck just happened here. How did this happen? What did we not see coming? And part of it was the fact that the Republicans and the conservative movement had created the perpetual outrage machine, which was revved up. And you saw this on both on talk radio, on Fox News, and many of the outside groups. As a result, I think conservatives were very clear about what they were opposed to and who they hated, but they were much less clear about what they were for, what they stood for. And I think that's playing out now when the Republicans control the entire federal government, but they're having a hard time figuring out what is our governing philosophy.
Well, let's pick up on that point. Coming up on 4-1 Forward, midterm elections are just a year away. Normally, that's never good news for the party in power. Will President Trump be a boost or a bust for Republicans? Plus, the vintage